Hi, I'm Jerry Wise. I'm a therapist at Family Tree Counseling Associates, and this video is on emotional cutoff. I'd like to first define emotional cutoff. Emotional cutoff is the experience of having little to no relationship with one's own feelings, and also little to no relationship emotionally with others. And this is the experience of being emotionally cut off. How would I describe it further, or what would be the results of having an emotional cutoff? I see people primarily living in denial as a result of emotional cutoff. If we're not aware of our feelings or have frozen feelings, we're really not aware of it. Second of all is emotional distortion. We might be too sensitive, or we might be totally insensitive. Whenever we're not connected to our emotional core, we're going to find ourselves out of balance, and our gyroscope will be off, and as a result will cause conflict, problems, overreactiveness, and things like that. And I think overreactiveness, which we call reactivity, is in which we react in a situation that's not appropriate, or we distort the communication and we become very reactive. Because of being emotionally cut off from our feelings, we really don't see things clearly. And that process of not seeing things clearly causes us difficulties in relationships. We also find that we experience an emotional roller coaster in which we have a pendulum that swings from a considerable amount of enmeshment or neediness all the way out to very distant and cut off with folks. And so that pendulum moves back and forth, and it becomes very uncomfortable. But we find ourselves living that life of a pendulum life. If we're emotionally cut off, we really don't have a real true sense of self, because without our feelings and emotions, we're not fully ourselves. We tend to be fearful of intimacy. We are often insecure and have low self-esteem. Also, we experience relationship wreckage from our lack of emotionality, whether past relationships, work relationships, relationships in our marriage, with our kids. We find there's a lot of conflict and difficulty going on. It's never really very smooth, because without feelings and emotions and being aware of those, things get very rocky. And we don't have all the information we need to live a more stable, emotionally fulfilling life. Those who have experienced an emotional cutoff in the past, and that's generally where our emotional cutoff comes from, is from the past, we find that emotional cutoff ends up creating difficulties in our current relationships. With our kids, with our spouse, even at work. Let me talk about Sam and Michelle briefly. Sam primarily, he's the emotional cutoff one in this relationship. Sam and Michelle have been married 25 years. Sam began his life of emotional cutoff back when he was in his family of origin. His father was highly critical. His mother was a peacemaker. His father was very fearful of closeness and uncomfortable with feelings. He was often unhappy in the marriage and tolerated Sam's mother. Oftentimes when we're emotionally cut off, we tend to tolerate, though not very well, the feelings of others. We are pretty intolerant of the feelings of others. Sam Jr.'s mother was a peacemaker. She never got her intimacy needs met. She had low self-esteem. She lived a life of very lowered expectations about happiness in the marriage with Sam Sr. Sam began to experience his emotional cutoff from his father. He could never get close enough for a healthy bond, and so he basically stopped trying. and this created the first emotional cutoff. He became enmeshed with his mother, a caretaker for her. Both reflect the different sides of the same coin of emotional cutoff, which is an underlying need to overconnect. We almost become addicted to love, and then an inability to connect in being very distant or cut off. Sam's drive for connectedness and unconditional love pushed him towards Michelle. He found Michelle, they began dating, they got married. The first year of their marriage was pretty much a romantic type of love for the first year or so. That's when we tend to idealize each other. Then when that starts to fall away, then problems start to begin. He experienced being cut off from his feelings. He began to only tolerate Michelle's inability to fill him up, and often if we're emotionally cut off, we want others to fill up our emotional bucket, but it usually doesn't work, or not usually, it does not work when we need others to fill up our emotional bucket. Sam became more critical, exhibited often being unaware how he was affecting others. He felt angry because his needs never got met. He acted out with alcohol and affair. Michelle lowered her expectations for the relationship and for its satisfaction and focused on taking care of Sam. And you see the pattern, much like Sam's parents, then Sam and Michelle start living a life much like what Sam experienced growing up. Michelle knew something was wrong. Sam began to be aware that there were problems because Michelle kept complaining, and they sought help for their relationship. So, how did Sam turn around from the problem? Sam worked on changing his blame, his anger, and reactivity to the all-important self-awareness. Oftentimes when we're blaming and focusing on others, we are primarily unaware of ourselves. And emotional cutoff is basically not being aware of your own feelings, needs, desires, drives in a healthy way. Sam looked at the cost of his emotional cutoff to himself, his wife, his kids, and at work. Sam learned the language and the experience of identifying and expressing feelings. Primarily, Sam worked on his original relationship within his family of origin with his father and his mother. He chose less distance between his parents while learning to take care of himself in his family of origin environment. He basically had given up on his father and had broken off all relationship with him because he felt there was no use. But whenever we have that emotional cutoff that occurs, it ends up solidifying something negative within us. And so it's important that we go to heal that and restore it. Not to change the family of origin, but to change ourselves and what happens inside of us emotionally. After he began to do some of that work, he began to notice how much freer and more comfortable he was with Michelle. Their relationship started to get better. Let me talk lastly about the keys to healing emotional cutoff. Getting help is very important. Trusting someone to help you gain self-awareness. I think a good therapist is someone who can help you do that. Doing emotional exercises, practicing identifying and expressing feelings. Taking the big step of doing our family of origin work, which is a very big step. Not only working on the family of origin in our head, but working in our heads and from the past, but work on the family of origin and the relationship we have with them today. Family of origin work, again, is not about changing them, it's about changing us. We can reap very large payoffs by doing family of origin work. Healing an ounce of family of origin cutoff can produce a pound of healthy intimacy and emotional connectedness. Let me state that again. Healing an ounce of family of origin cutoff can produce a pound of healthy intimacy and emotional connectedness. The more we get our family of origin out of us without distancing ourselves from them, the stronger the sense of self we will experience and the greater intimacy we will achieve. I hope you'll give me a call at 317-919-6264. You can also find me at www.familytreecounseling.com, and thanks for listening.